What if I told you that everything you've ever been taught about death is wrong? That what you call the end is actually the doorway to something more real than this life you're living right now? You've been programmed to fear it, to look away, to pretend that if you don't think about it, it won't come for you. But what if avoiding death is the very thing that's keeping you from living? There's a book, ancient, mysterious, feared, and often misunderstood. It's been hidden in plain sight, suppressed, not because it's irrelevant, but because it's too powerful, too liberating. It's called the Tibetan Book of the Dead. But that's not even its real name. The true title is the Bardo Thodol, translated, Liberation Through Hearing During the Intermediate State. It's not just a book. It's a guide, a spiritual map written for the soul, not for entertainment, not for theology, but for you, when your body dies and your mind is no longer tethered to this physical world. Imagine this for a moment. You've taken your final breath. Your body is no longer moving, but you're still aware. You can still see, you can still hear, you can still feel, but nothing is solid anymore. You're in between. This is the Bardo. And this book? It's the only thing that describes in detail what happens next, step by step, not based on dogma, but based on what thousands of monks and mystics have experienced directly, through meditation, near death, and complete surrender to the truth. It starts with light, but not just any light. This light is beyond comprehension. It's the raw radiance of your own true nature, the clear light of ultimate reality. It's not something outside of you, it's you, stripped of form, name, and thought. For a few precious moments after death, you merge with it. And in that moment, if you recognize it, if you realize, this is me, I am this light, you are free, forever. But most don't recognize it because it's too intense, too vast. The ego retreats, fear rises, and the light fades. And then the visions begin. Not heaven, not hell. Something stranger. You're not in a place, you're in your own mind. And your mind begins to project. Beautiful figures appear, peaceful deities, faces that feel loving, familiar, divine. But then come the wrathful ones, terrifying, loud, grotesque, screaming, shaking, morphing. But here's the truth no one ever told you. They're all you. Every image is a reflection of your consciousness, your beliefs, your shadows, your unlived emotions. The Tibetan masters knew this. They didn't say, these are gods judging you. They said, these are mirrors. What you see after death is what you refused to see during life. And here's the key. If you can recognize even the most terrifying vision as your own mind, if you can say, this is not other, this is me, you dissolve the illusion, and liberation is possible. But if you react with fear, if you run, if you think these are real monsters, you fall deeper into the third Bardo, the Bardo of becoming. Here your thoughts have weight, your emotions have gravity. Every desire, every attachment pulls you like a magnet toward your next life. You don't get judged, you choose, but without awareness it's not a conscious choice, it's habit, it's karma, it's programming. You're pulled to the womb, the parents, the body, the conditions that match your mind's frequency, and the cycle begins again. Birth, life, death, Bardo, rebirth, over and over, until one day you awaken. But here's the real secret. You don't have to wait until death to start this journey. The Bardos are happening now. Every moment you lose something, every time you feel fear or grief or change, that's a mini-death. And the way you meet it, resistance or awareness, is the way you'll meet death itself. That's why the Tibetan Book of the Dead exists, not for monks, for you. Because if you can learn to die consciously, you'll finally learn how to live. The fear that's been keeping you small, avoiding risks, clinging to things that no longer serve you, it all comes from a misunderstanding. You think you are your body, you think you are your name, you think that when the body stops, you stop. But that's the illusion. You are consciousness, awareness, presence. And that presence doesn't vanish, it transitions. And if you prepare through meditation, compassion, stillness, and courage, your awareness becomes sharp, your recognition becomes strong. So when the clear light comes, you'll know. You won't be afraid. You won't flinch. You'll recognize your own face in that eternal radiance. And in that recognition you'll be free. Not someday, not after another 100 lifetimes. Now. Because everything in this book points back to this moment of listening, of being. This is the Bardo. This is the opportunity. This is the beginning of your liberation. You've been taught to fear death since before you could speak, not because it's inherently terrifying, but because fear makes you controllable. Think about it. From your first breath, everything around you whispered the same message. Avoid death, avoid pain, do what you're told, and maybe you'll be safe. But safe from what? We live in a world where death has been hidden away, sterilized, sanitized, and separated from daily life. People die behind curtains, behind hospital doors, while the rest of us scroll through news feeds pretending we'll never be next. And yet, it's the only certainty in your life. You will die. Every single person you love will too. And still, no one teaches you how to meet it, how to understand it, how to prepare for the most profound experience your consciousness will ever face. But why? Because when you fear death, you cling to life blindly. You obey. You consume. You avoid risk. You follow orders that promise safety. You fall in line. Governments, corporations, religions, they all know this. If they can make you terrified of the end, they can sell you 1,000 versions of false salvation. But death is not the enemy, fear is. And when you remove the fear, something incredible happens. You stop living like a prisoner. You stop worshipping comfort. You begin to awaken to the sacred truth that your life, this very moment, is not guaranteed. And that makes it precious. You become present. You become real. The Tibetan masters knew this long before modern psychology caught up. They saw death not as a problem to be solved, but as the master teacher of the soul. They walked right into it, eyes open, mind still. They mapped the terrain not out of curiosity, but because they knew that the way we die is the way we live. You've seen it too, haven't you? That haunting moment at a funeral, where you suddenly realize everything you've been chasing might not matter. That chill when someone close to you dies, and you feel the void swallow your words, your plans, your calendar. That whisper in the back of your mind, what if I'm wasting my time? But then you push it down, as we've been trained to look away, conditioned to believe that thinking about death is morbid, that surrender is weakness, that impermanence is something to fight. But it's not. It's the doorway, and the real you, the one that exists beyond titles and skin, has already been walking through that doorway lifetime after lifetime. You're not just a body. You never were. Look closer. Your body changes every year. Every cell, every strand of hair. The hands you held as a child are not the hands you hold now. The face in your old photos has died 1,000 small deaths already. But you, the awareness behind the eyes, remains. Think about that. Who is it that watched your childhood? Who is it that remembers that first heartbreak, that moment of joy, that quiet feeling at night when everything is still? That witness, that silent presence has never aged, never disappeared, because it's not the body, it's not the mind, it's consciousness itself. And that consciousness doesn't die. Science is catching up to this ancient truth. Neuroscience now shows us that the brain is more a receiver than a generator, that thoughts arise from fields beyond what neurons can explain. Quantum physicists speak of the observer effect, how particles don't even exist in a definite state until consciousness interacts with them. What if it's not the brain that creates your awareness, but awareness that uses the brain like a lens? What if death is not the destruction of self, but the removal of the lens? This is exactly what near-death experiencers report. Across every culture, language, and belief system, they speak of floating above their bodies, of clarity, of feeling more alive than ever before, of seeing light not just as a brightness, but as a knowing, as home. Some come back changed forever, not because they glimpsed heaven, but because they realized they were never their body to begin with. One woman described it like this: "I didn't go somewhere when I died, I just woke up, like I'd been in a dream, and then I remembered what I really was." This is exactly what the Tibetan Book of the Dead has been teaching for centuries, that what you call death is not a shutdown, it's a shift, a transition of awareness from one state to another. And just like waking from a dream, what you experience next depends entirely on the state of your mind when it happens. Imagine carrying years of resentment, guilt, fear, and clinging. Now imagine dying in that state. Your consciousness doesn't just drop all of it, it magnifies it. It's why preparation matters, not in the form of rituals or beliefs, but in the form of awareness. Can you be present with pain? Can you observe your thoughts without attaching to them? You let go of what you love, not with coldness, but with gratitude. These are not abstract spiritual questions, they are death training, and the more you practice in life, the more you'll recognize the truth when the body lets go, because here's the truth no one ever told you. You're not preparing to die. You're remembering that you've already died before. And you'll do it again. The question is, will you sleep through it or will you wake up? There's a reason you've never been taught what actually happens when you die. Not in school, not in church, not even in most spiritual circles. Because if you truly knew what was on the other side, if you truly understood the mechanics of consciousness, you couldn't be controlled. You'd no longer fear loss. You'd no longer need a system to save you. And you'd no longer mistake this illusion for the only reality. That's why the Tibetan Book of the Dead was never meant for the masses. It wasn't written for tourists or scholars. It was written for souls. Specifically for the moment after death, when your body is gone but your mind is still active, spinning, searching for what's next. It's called the Bardo Thirdal. It means liberation through hearing during the intermediate state, not afterlife doctrine, not heavenly instruction. Liberation, because that's what it offers, not belief, but a roadmap out of the cycle of death and rebirth. And the map is terrifyingly precise. The text begins by guiding the consciousness as it separates from the body. It instructs the reader, really the hearer since it's often read aloud to the dying, on what to expect, moment by moment. It describes the exact sequence of experience. First a flash of the clear light, then visions, some beautiful, some horrifying. Finally the magnetic pull toward rebirth. This isn't mythology. It's a psychological and metaphysical manual, so advanced modern consciousness research is still catching up. So where did it come from? It's said to have been revealed by the great master Padmasambhava in the 8th century, a figure who, according to tradition, was more than human, a fully realized being who planted the seeds of Tantric Buddhism in Tibet. He knew the world wasn't ready for this kind of knowledge, so he hid it, literally. The Book of the Dead was concealed as a terma, a spiritual treasure, hidden in caves, rocks, and even the mind streams of future teachers. It was rediscovered centuries later by a mystic named Karma Lingpa, who was guided to the teachings not by scholars but by visions. When it emerged again, it was only shared in whispers among practitioners trained in the deepest forms of meditation and non-dual awareness. Why? Because it's dangerous to the ego. This book doesn't ask you to believe in gods or angels. It asks you to confront the terrifying truth that you create your experience before death, during death, and after death. Let that sink in. There is no final judge, no celestial authority weighing your sins. There is only your mind, your consciousness, your karma, and the patterns you carry with you. These patterns don't disappear when you die, they amplify, which is why the Tibetan masters broke the Bardo experience into 3 stages. The first is the Bardo of the moment of death. It's the most sacred window, because right as the body shuts down, the clear light appears. This isn't a metaphor. It's the raw field of reality, the source behind all form, radiant, formless, infinite, and for a brief moment, you're fully immersed in it. This is your chance. If you recognize it, if your awareness is stable enough to say, this is my true nature, you dissolve into liberation. But if the ego is still clinging, the light becomes too overwhelming. The mind retreats, and the second Bardo begins, the Bardo of visions. Here's where things get strange. Your mind starts projecting forms, deities, lights, sounds. You see gods of peace and beauty. Then you see wrathful gods, fanged, fiery, terrifying. But none of them are out there. They're you. Every vision is a crystallized piece of your psyche. Desire, rage, shame, joy, love, all personified, magnified, and reflected back at you. The peaceful deities aren't there to save you. They're showing you your potential. The wrathful ones aren't there to punish you. They're showing you your unhealed wounds. And in both cases, the key is recognition. Can you remember in the middle of the dream that it's a dream? Can you remember in the presence of a terrifying God, this is my mind, this is my projection, I am not separate from this? Because if you can, it dissolves, and what remains is clarity. But if you don't recognize it, you get caught. Fear arises, desire arises, panic arises. And that's when the third Bardo begins, the Bardo of becoming. In this stage, your consciousness begins seeking a new home, not because it needs one, but because it's been conditioned to. This is the stage of rebirth. You're pulled not by a divine hand, but by the gravity of your own thoughts. If your mind is chaotic, you're drawn to chaotic conditions. If your mind is peaceful, you're drawn to peaceful realms. But the decision isn't conscious, it's energetic. And that's the tragedy. You could be free, but because you don't know you have a choice, you don't choose. You simply follow the current and find yourself in another body, in another life, repeating the same lessons, the same desires, the same fears. Until you remember and choose differently. Here's what most people miss. You're already in a Bardo right now. This life, this moment, it's a Bardo. A transition state between birth and death. You are dreaming now. And just like in the after-death state, every emotion you feel, every projection you make is shaping your experience. Every moment is a choice. Recognize the dream and you can wake up. Stay lost in it and the wheel keeps turning. Death doesn't change that. It just magnifies it. That's why the Tibetan Book of the Dead exists. Not to scare you, but to prepare you. Because the moment you die, you meet yourself. Most people think life prepares you to live. But in truth, life is preparing you to die. Not in some dark or morbid way, but in the most powerful, liberating way imaginable. Every challenge you face, every heartbreak you endure, every identity you lose is a kind of rehearsal. Each time something ends, a relationship, a job, a version of yourself, that's a Bardo, a transition. You're not who you were, but you're not who you will become. And in that space, there's potential. That's where awareness is forged. You've felt it before, haven't you? That strange in-between moment where everything is uncertain, where the ground beneath you shifts and the old story no longer fits. That's a living Bardo. And how you meet it determines how you evolve. Do you cling? Do you numb? Do you panic? Or do you breathe, observe, and surrender? This is why the Tibetan teachings aren't just about death. They're about life. Because every day offers you a chance to practice letting go. Letting go of control. letting go of certainty, letting go of who you think you are. And in that letting go, something deeper emerges, the you that can't be lost, the you that doesn't die. That's what the Masters trained for. Not to escape death, but to walk into it like an old friend. Calm, clear, awake. And they did that through practice. Not belief, not ritual, practice. Because when death comes, it doesn't ask what you believed. It asks what you are. And what you are is determined by the quality of your awareness. So how do you train for that? You start where you are. Right now. The first practice is simple, but it's not easy. Meditation. Not to escape your mind, but to meet it. To watch thoughts arise and dissolve. To see how everything passes. Emotions, stories, sensations. Just like life, just like death. You begin to notice the gap between experience and awareness. And in that gap, freedom is born. Next comes impermanence awareness. Every day take time to remember, this will all end, not with fear, but with reverence. Look at the faces you love. Realize they will change, they will fade, they will go, and let that make you more present, not less. Let it break your heart open. Then there's Tonglen, a practice of breathing in suffering and breathing out healing. You inhale the pain of the world, not to be crushed by it, but to transform it. You exhale peace, compassion, light. In doing so, you soften the boundaries between self and other. You prepare for the moment when all identities dissolve. And then there's dream yoga, because sleep is the closest rehearsal to death. When your body rests and the ego fades and visions begin, can you remain aware? Can you lucid dream through death? The Masters say yes. And mantra, sacred sound, as a lifeline of consciousness, repeating the names of awakened beings, not as worship but as resonance. So when death comes, those vibrations are already inside you, guiding you, holding you. These aren't esoteric rituals. They're technologies of liberation. They rewire your nervous system. They calm your mind. They prepare you to meet the clear light not as a stranger, but as yourself. And here's the part that might shock you. The science is starting to catch up. Carl Jung, the great death psychologist, spent decades studying near-death symbolism, dreams, and archetypes. He didn't dismiss visions of deities and demons as fantasy. He saw them as expressions of the collective unconscious. He knew that what appears in the Bardo is not random, it's the architecture of your psyche made visible. And that understanding has echoes in the most unlikely place, quantum physics. Because at the subatomic level, particles don't behave like solid matter. They're waves, potentials, fields of probability. And what determines their state? Observation. Consciousness. The observer effect proves that you are not separate from what you perceive. You are influencing reality by simply witnessing it. Just like in the Bardos. What you perceive after death isn't just shown to you, it's created by you. And the more awareness you bring, the more choices you have. Even near-death survivors tell the same story. Thousands of people across cultures, religions, and languages have flatlined, no heartbeat, no brain activity, only to return with reports that mirrored the Bardo teachings. A tunnel of light, a feeling of peace, a review of life, beings of light and darkness, choice, liberation, return. One woman described her death like this: it was like waking up from a dream, and the dream was my entire life. She didn't fear death after that. She feared living without presence. These accounts don't contradict the Book of the Dead. They confirm it, because they show us that consciousness isn't produced by the brain. It continues after the brain stops, and it reflects whatever you carry inside. This isn't fantasy, it's reality. And the sooner you start practicing now, the more freedom you'll have later, but not just after death. Right here. Because the same mind that creates Bardos after death is creating your experience right now. You don't have to wait. You can start dissolving your suffering today by becoming aware, by letting go, by remembering who you really are. Because this life is not a waiting room, it's the training ground, and every moment is a doorway. So what really happens in that final moment, when the breath stops and the body falls silent? It's not darkness. It's not chaos. It's not the void you've been taught to fear. It's light. But not the kind of light you see with your eyes. This is the clear light of ultimate reality. It has no form, no color, no beginning, no end. It's what the Tibetan masters described as the natural state of the mind. Pure, luminous awareness, free from identity, free from time, free from illusion. And in that moment, right after death, you become it. The ego dissolves. The mental chatter stops. There are no stories, no memories, no fears, just presence, just being. For most, it lasts only a moment, but that moment is everything. Because if your awareness is clear, if your spiritual training has prepared you to recognize that light as your true nature, you don't return. You dissolve into liberation. You awaken from the dream completely. You are free. This is the final test, the ultimate doorway. And it doesn't reward belief. It responds to recognition. But the truth? Most don't recognize it, because the ego is still clinging, still trying to hold on, still afraid to disappear. And the mind begins to stir. Thoughts form again. Memories surface. Desires return. And that's when the next stage begins, the vision stage. This is where your consciousness begins to project images. Some are radiant, divine, beautiful. Others are terrifying, grotesque, overwhelming. Peaceful deities appear, compassionate figures with halos and light. Then come wrathful beings, roaring faces, blazing weapons, blood-red skies. But none of them are judging you. None of them are real in the way you think. They are you, every single one. They're the symbolic expressions of your subconscious, your unprocessed fears, traumas, longings, guilt, shame, and bliss, personified. What you didn't deal with in life meets you here. But not as thoughts, as living realities. Archetypes rise from the deep. Your inner mother, your inner tyrant, your abandoned child, your divine self, your shadow, and they don't whisper, they roar. Because here, in the Bardo, everything is magnified. Time stretches, emotions intensify, visions become real enough to make you forget you're dreaming. And that's where most souls get lost. They think these projections are actual threats. They run from the wrathful. They cling to the peaceful, but both reactions, fear and desire, keep you spinning, keep you bound, because when you believe the dream is real, you suffer. But if you can see through it, if you recognize every image as a projection of mind, you break the spell. And in that recognition, the vision dissolves. What remains? Clarity, peace, liberation. This is why awareness matters more than anything else. Not how good you were, not how spiritual you looked. Just one thing, your capacity to see clearly, to not react with panic, to remember your nature in the middle of the storm. And if you don't, you fall into the third Bardo, the Bardo of becoming. This is where rebirth begins, but not because someone sends you back. You go because your mind pulls you, like a magnet, like a program running its default script. You seek a new body, a new life, a new form, not out of punishment, but out of habit, because that's what karma really is, not some divine scoreboard. It's energetic momentum. It's the sum of your thoughts, beliefs, emotions, and attachments, creating a vibrational signature, and that vibration attracts the next life, a body, a family, a culture, a set of conditions that match your internal state. So if your mind is full of fear, you go where fear lives. If it's full of compassion, you find a path to serve. This isn't judgment, it's resonance. The universe doesn't punish, it reflects. And the question in the Bardo of becoming is simple. Are you conscious enough to choose? Or will you be pulled by your patterns once again? The masters say that in this stage the soul sees visions of potential births, glimpses of possible parents, environments, lives. If you're not aware, you react impulsively, drawn by desire, aversion, or confusion. You enter the womb, the door closes, and the dream begins again. But there is another way. You can choose consciously. You can recognize the impulse and pause. You can watch the projection and not react. And in that space between impulse and action, there is freedom. You don't have to repeat the same lessons. You don't have to be reborn into suffering. You can choose liberation. Not because you're better, not because you've earned it, but because you've remembered who you really are. That's the secret. You've always been free, you've just forgotten. And death is the great opportunity to remember. But so is life. Right now, in this very moment, you are shaping your next experience. Your every thought is writing the code of your karma. Your every emotion is creating the frequency of your next reality. And your level of awareness is determining whether you sleep or wake up. This is the power they never told you about. Because a person who doesn't fear death can't be manipulated, and a person who knows how to die knows how to live. Here's the truth no one ever told you. The Tibetan Book of the Dead was never just written for the dead. It was written for you right here, right now, while you're still alive, breathing, doubting, hoping, and searching. Because the most important part of death is how you live before it. This book isn't about some distant event that will happen one day when you're old or sick. It's about today, because how you relate to this moment is how you'll relate to the moment of death. If you meet discomfort with resistance, you'll meet death with fear. If you meet change with clinging, you'll meet death with panic. But if you meet life with awareness, curiosity, presence, you will meet death as an old friend, as a teacher, as a liberation. This is the real gift of the Bardo teachings. They don't ask you to escape this world. They ask you to become more awake within it, more intimate with it, more honest with yourself, because once you stop fearing death, you stop fearing everything. You stop fearing failure. You stop fearing rejection. You stop fearing loss. You realize there's nothing to hold on to, and in that surrender, you become unshakable. You stop playing small. You stop waiting. You start living from the part of you that's already free. This is why the training for liberation doesn't begin on your deathbed. It begins now. Every moment is a rehearsal. Every challenge is a chance to wake up. And you don't need a monastery, you don't need a cave, you don't even need a book. You just need awareness. What does that look like? It means treating each day as a bardo, each transition, each loss, each unfamiliar emotion. When something ends, a relationship, a belief, a version of yourself, feel the space. Ask, who am I without this? Not as a question to be answered, but as a doorway into the unknown. That's where freedom is. Practice seeing your thoughts as clouds, your emotions as weather, your fears as teachers in disguise, and above all, practice letting go. Not because it's easy, but because it's everything. Letting go is the path. It's how you loosen the grip of ego. It's how you dissolve the illusion that you are what you own, what you do, or what others think of you. Let go and feel who's still here. That presence, that you beyond the story is what survives death. And when you meet life from that place, you're no longer afraid. You forgive faster. You speak more truth. You love without armor, and that changes everything. This is what the Tibetan masters meant by dying before you die. To release the illusion now, to die to who you thought you were so you can awaken to who you really are. And when you do that, when you live as if you've already died, you become the most dangerous kind of person, one who's not owned by fear, one who can't be manipulated by systems, one who creates their reality from the inside out. Because here's the final secret, you are the author of your afterlife. karma isn't some mystical punishment. It's code. And you're writing it with every thought you think, every intention you hold, every vibration you emit. Your beliefs are instructions. Your emotions are energetic blueprints, and your consciousness is the architect. You're not at the mercy of some cosmic algorithm. You are the algorithm. And rebirth? It's not destiny. It's resonance. You don't end up in a new body because of some external decree. You end up where your vibration takes you. Like tuning a radio. Like following a signal. If your signal is fear, you attract fear. If it's love, you attract love. If it's clarity, you attract freedom. That's why the work you do now is so powerful, because every act of awareness is a vote for a different reality. Every time you choose presence over panic, softness over control, truth over illusion, you're not in theory, in fact, because you're not waiting to be judged. You're judging yourself in every moment, through what you choose to believe, how you choose to see, and how willing you are to let go of what no longer serves your awakening. That's what the Tibetan Book of the Dead teaches better than any other text on the planet. You are not a victim of the afterlife, you are its creator, and that creation starts now. So what kind of afterlife are you writing today? Are you living in alignment with the soul you want to carry forward? Are you acting from fear or from freedom? Are you hiding or waking up? These are not abstract questions, they are the foundation of your destiny. And when you truly understand that, when you stop waiting for someone to save you, stop blaming the past, stop outsourcing your power, you realize something extraordinary. You were never asleep. You were just afraid to open your eyes. But now that you see, you can never unsee. You are the light you seek in the Bardo. You are the presence that meets death without flinching. You are the one writing the next chapter, not just of this life, but of all the lives to come. So here we are, at the end, or maybe the beginning. You've walked through the teachings, you've glimpsed the Bardos, you've seen how death isn't some distant event. It's a presence, a teacher, a mirror reflecting your truest self back to you. And if there's one thing you carry with you after this, let it be this. You are not powerless in the face of death. You never were. You were only taught to forget. They taught you to fear death so you'd fear life. They taught you to cling to form, to chase comfort, to live cautiously inside cages made of glass. But death shatters all of that, and in the pieces, you find freedom. This freedom isn't loud, it's not flashy, it doesn't come with guarantees or applause. It's quiet, it's still. It's the knowing that you are something timeless, spaceless, unbreakable, and that you don't have to wait until your final breath to meet that part of yourself. You can meet it now, in the stillness between thoughts, in the moment before you speak, in the space between heartbeats. That's where your soul lives. That's where the clear light flickers, right beneath the noise, and when you touch it, even for a moment, the fear begins to fade. You stop rushing, you stop proving, you start listening to what your heart already knows. That every goodbye is practice for the final one, that every letting go is a rehearsal for release, and that every moment is sacred because it could be your last. This isn't morbid, this is holy, because when you live as if you might die tomorrow, you actually live. You say the truth you've been hiding, you forgive the pain you've been gripping. You love like nothing is promised, because it isn't. Nothing is. Except for this. One day, the body will rest. The heart will stop. The breath will pause. But you will still be here. Awake, aware, standing in the Bardo with the wisdom of every moment you chose truth over illusion. And when the clear light comes, not as a theory, but as an explosion of presence, you'll know, you'll remember, and instead of running from it, you'll merge with it, because it's not something outside of you, it's who you've always been. Everything you thought you were, your name, your body, your story, was just a costume. A beautiful, painful, fleeting costume worn for one brief dream in time. But the actor, the observer, the still, wordless witness. That is you. It always was, it always will be. And once you know this, really know it, you can never be the same. You stop seeking salvation. You stop begging the universe for meaning, because you become the meaning. You become the calm in the storm, the eye behind the vision, the silence behind the sound. That's what death teaches. That's what the Tibetan Book of the Dead whispers to you if you're ready to hear it. You are already free. You just need to remember. So take this knowing and live differently. Live with your eyes wide open. Let the small self die before the body does. And in that space, watch what grows. Compassion, clarity, peace, presence. You'll still feel fear, you'll still stumble, but something inside you will be rooted in the truth that you are not the waves, you are the ocean. Not the thought, you are the awareness. Not the form, you are the field from which all forms arise. And when death comes, you won't run. You'll bow. You'll breathe. You'll smile. And you'll walk through the veil like a master returning home. Because you were never the one who died. You were the one who watched. The one who woke up. And now, it's your time. To live with death as your ally. To walk as the infinite wrapped in skin. To love fiercely. To forgive quickly. To speak truthfully. To remember. Because once you do, you'll never forget again.